In the future, brands will need to move towards 3D digital product creation to remain competitive and more responsive to consumers. Brands can achieve this objective by being part of the new digital textile revolution through machine learning in manufacturing, 3D clothing design and fabric digitization, the promotion of internal textile industry process digitization. We must recognize the power of Taiwan's textile industry as an integral part of Asia's digital textile hub. This year, we will discuss why effectively advancing 3D digital product creation within the textile industry is so important. Topics for discussion will include how to utilize AI to transform fabric into 3D material, managing the supply chain, scaling digital assets to effectively connect with e-commerce, how the digital approach can help us to work towards a more sustainable global future. Want to discover more? The World Digital Textile Forum, organized by the Advancement Association for Digital Textile, will give you the insights, intelligence, and answers you're looking for. This year's guests include. So join us and witness the opening of the gateway into the digital textile universe.
Hello and welcome to the third day of the 2021 World Digital Textile Forum. My name's Alexis from Frontier. Before we sit back and enjoy the keynote speakers, I'd like to take a little moment to introduce the host of today's forum, Paul Chan. Paul is the Chief Amazement Officer at Hanin Enterprises. That's probably one of the most exciting job titles I've ever seen. Paul is actively involved in the Hong Kong Apparel Society and the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, contributing to the development of the apparel industry. Over to you, Paul.
So thank you, everyone. I would like to thank you, everyone, for joining this lovely event, and thank you, Frontier, and all the organizers' invitations to do this. To cut every story short, I will start with let me introduce you to two of our major speakers. One of them are from the Sixth Atomic, Tammy Ko. And she will be speaking about the implication of real-time fashion on textile supply chain. And then the next speaker will be Mark Russell, the co-founder and COO of Infinity Innovation. He will be speaking about how to kickstart digital transformation in the supply chain. So now we'll have Tammy. Please go ahead and kickstart this lovely event.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, so my name is Tam Ko. I'm the CEO of Sixth Atomic. We are mainly the company that does automation technology for the fashion supply chain. And today I'll be speaking about the implications of real-time fashion on the textile supply chain. Most of us here today are well familiar with the typical apparel supply chain. So typically, the brand would develop products, so they would come up with the design and perhaps also produce patterns or samples as well. And then the brand would place orders to a manufacturer to mass produce. Typically that involves a minimum order quantity of hundreds to thousands. And then after the inventory has been produced, then the brand would go and sell that inventory to customers. And that's the push model that we're all very familiar with. But the problem with this is that the lead time is too long. This process can take 3 to 6 months or even longer, depending on the size of the brand and the manufacturer. This long lead time leaves brand at a loss. It means that brands would have to make decisions today and hope that months from now, their investment will still be on trend in consumers' minds. But brand knows that trends don't work this way. Fashion trends can change extremely quickly at a matter of hours on social media. I think we're familiar with TikTok these days, where new trends can emerge on an hourly basis, and consumers expect that their fast-changing demands would be met by brands. So within the last decade, leading brands have been in the race to be the fastest. It started with Zara in the 1990s, pioneering fast fashion, and they have increased the efficiency of their supply chain so that they can get their new design from the drawing boards to the storefront in 3 weeks. And then in the 2010s comes the era of ultra fast fashion, with the e-commerce leading with ASOS, Fashion Nova, and Boohoo, where the efficiency in the supply chain is increased even more. And today we have Shein at the very top of this efficiency graph. Shein today can successfully reduce their lead time to 3 days. And we've now entered the era of real-time fashion. So Shein can respond to trends in real time and make decisions extremely quickly. So they can get products from the drawing board to live online and available for purchase in as little as 3 days. And they produce tens of thousands of new SKUs every day, all of which are popular and have a high chance of retail success, which means that they can reduce waste, inefficiencies, and even markdowns, which give a brand a huge loss in their investment. And that means they have a huge advantage over competitors who are less efficient at this real-time production. But how is this even possible? For Shein, it involves a lot of data that are digitized. So Shein collects data at every step of the way, from retail to manufacturer, that feeds into their design decisions and help improve the whole process to be more efficient and have a higher chance of retail success. So they would analyze consumer data, predicts demand, as well as adjust productions on the fly. As well as all of vendors and manufacturers in their network would provide very transparent feedback to the brand Shein itself so that they can make decisions very quickly. Since they have a lot of data, it also means that the data has to be integrated from end to end. And for Shein, they use one central source of truth, which is an ERP software that they require both the brand internally as well as all of their vendors to use. And so that they can get data to the brands and the designers to make decisions on what products to use, as well as adjusting productions on the fly extremely quickly. And the process of this data is automated as well. So they use automation to make use of the data quickly and efficiently, and using machine learning or algorithm to analyze the data to judge what would be effective and what needs to be improved. So the end-to-end integrations, as the name says, end-to-end, it needs to happen at every single step of the supply chains, from design and merchandising to going up on retail, and the order generation process after a customer make an order on a e-commerce website, for example, and then through to production, as well as post-sales analytics. So let me give you an example of this integrated real-time fashion, and I'll illustrate this example that's already being used in the industry today, with how 6 Atomic can help brands and suppliers achieve this real-time fashion through integration and automation. So for those of you who don't know us, 6 Atomic, we make automation technology that enables real-time fashion production. So one of our core products is that we use an algorithm to generate garment patterns automatically within a few seconds. And this pattern can be graded to any size spec or even custom fit. And with 6 Atomic as an example, I'll walk you through how we provide automation and we touch on every step of the supply chain. I have a quick demo video of how 6 Atomic works. So this is part of the 6 Atomic web application. At the very first step, we have broken down each of the design components. So designers can make design decisions extremely quickly. As you can see, we have broken down different parts of the garments like collar, pattern, cuffs, design, even fit as well. And this is called a modular library. So a starting point of the modular library can be pre-existing patterns. For example, brands can give us hundreds of thousands of patterns that they currently have, and will convert those pattern pieces, like different parts, for example, collars or cuffs, into this huge library that can be mixed and matched. Or the starting point can be pure algorithm as well, which is the case for our default modular library that anyone can use through our 6 Atomic web application. So this library is capable of creating millions of unique SKUs. I'm talking about design alone, not including fabric. So designers can create new products extremely quickly through this library. Sorry, I have a problem with playing. Okay, there you go. Select the material, and this material library includes properties of, can you guys do, oh sorry. The materials property includes things that would affect the pattern production, including material nest width, for example, or selvage edge margin, as well as pattern spacing, which can depend on different material types and thickness, as well as the shrinkage and the stretch properties, or the design as well, which affects how the pattern would be automatically nested for that specific material. So the designer from the brand can select a material that they want to use from this library, and this material library can be supplied to us by the brand or the suppliers, like the fabric suppliers themselves as well. After selecting the materials, the brands or the vendors can customize the seam allowances depending on the requirements of each manufacturer. And then you come to select the size that the designers want to generate. So this includes standard sizes where the input would be garment measurements that are predefined by the brand, or custom fitted, which are based on each person's unique body measurements. Here we select the sizes that we want to generate. And once you click generate the patterns will be generated automatically by the algorithm in the back end. And at the end of that process, you first get a tech pack with all the data that you've selected, including garment measurements output, which can then be exported. And here we have a few different file formats that are typical for the industry. For example, you can export AAMA, or even file for plotter cutter like PLT. So here, select DXF standard, and there's an option to export specific pattern pieces as well for different batching needs. But here, let's demonstrate exporting full pattern. So you can download the pattern file and open it in a CAD-like software. And at the end of the output, you get a manufacturer-ready pattern, which includes all of the markers like notches, seam allowances, and grain lines, as well as all of the markups as well. So here, you can see that the process of generating patterns can be reduced to a few seconds instead of having to spend hours and hours to grade patterns manually using a pattern maker. And from that pattern file, there's another thing that we can do is that this pattern file will come with a JSON file format, which contains rich metadata of the patterns, as well as relationships between pattern pieces. which means that when we open this JSON file in a 3D visualization software, like here we are opening it in Browseware vStitcher. Here's the JSON file that we have exported. You can see that once this JSON file is exported, the relationship between pattern pieces, as you can see in the bright blue lines here, is also imported into vStitcher. And this means that the 3D visualization of this pattern can be simulated within one click of a button instead of having a designer or pattern maker manually simulate it. And this 3D simulation can assist the brand, the designer, to visualize the patterns that they produce or the design that they have produced so that they can make a decision quickly to get that design to the production and to retail environment extremely quickly. As you can see, the outputs can be improved as well. So this 3D visualization that can be generated in a few seconds can also be used as a merchandising assets if we improve the lighting and the texture so that it looks more retail ready. And as I've demonstrated earlier, that this pattern assets can be sent out to a manufacturer to be produced right away as well. And this can feed into an automation machine that automatically cuts the fabric, for example, to help speed up the process and make things a lot more efficient. So with this process, it means that designers or the brands can make production make decisions for what design to produce extremely quickly, even in the same day or in the same hours. So here I've addressed the design and merchandising step within the flow, as well as the order generation or the pattern batching parts, as well as the production. And I'll also demonstrate how it works with the automation within the retail space, as well as the post-sales analytics. And I have an example here. This is from Stitch Fix website. And Stitch Fix is a company that is, they are amazing at using data, and they have data, a lot of data that is automatically analyzed to help make this design decisions. So here you can see that Stitch Fix would break down a garment into each of the components. For example, they would be able to tell that this shirt is a V-neck shirt and is short sleeve. The fabric is a polka dot pattern that's navy color, and it has other properties like the garment measurements and some other success, retail success value as well. So if you have all of this data and then you look at all of the garments that are sold in your retail stores, brand can analyze extremely quickly what would be the next most successful products, which helps unlock that quicker decision making for the brands to be able to feed into this real-time production process, because the faster you can analyze and apply the data, then the faster you can keep up with consumer demands that are becoming quicker and quicker as well. So how can textile suppliers and manufacturers get ready for real-time fashion? The primary things is to digitize data for integrations. As you can see, that data is extremely important in every part of the process to make this real-time fashion vision possible. And this data for textile suppliers specifically, it could include data for design. This includes the fabric composition, the thickness, the color, the pattern, and the quality of the materials. It also includes data for 3D simulations, including the accurate scan of the fabric, the texture, the weight, and physical properties that the 3D software would need to simulate an accurate representation. And also data for automated pattern generation, as I've demonstrated with 6 atomic fab software, where it would include the stretch, the shrinkage property, the width for pattern nesting, as well as the directional design as well. And also data for sourcing, so that the brand would know the pricing, the inventory and availability, as well as the shipment lead time, so that if they know that they want to get a new product with this material on retail store within 5 days, would this material be available for them or not? And once you have this type of data, you also have an option to integrate with digital textile databases. And I have Frontier here as an example. Frontier is a huge database of digital textile database that the brand can have access to and make decisions on design extremely quickly. And you can integrate that database itself into an end-to-end platform, something like 6 Atomic, so that it helps designer makes decision quickly and realistically as well. So once they select a material that they want to produce for the newest design, they know that it's also readily available and can be produced and sewn within a few days. And the last thought I would like to leave this presentation with is whether you'd be a part of real-time fashion now or be left behind, because real-time fashion is already a reality, as we can see with Shein, and more brands have taken their parts to make improvements in their supply chain efficiency to move towards this direction. So it's your choice whether you would evolve with the rest of the industry, or would you be left behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you very much for your lovely presentation. Definitely, this is a time for all the digital change, and thank you very much for your presentation. And if for all the people who are attending this, if there's a questions, please feel free to write your question on the chat group, and then we will answer it after the presentation. Okay, so our next guest is Mark Russell. He is the COO and co-founder of Infinity Innovation. He will be speaking about how to kickstart digital transformation in supply chain. Okay, Mark.
Yeah, hi, Paul. Yeah, thanks for that. And thanks for Tammy's last previous presentation. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mark Russell. I've been in the apparel sector for longer than I would care to mention, but basically predominantly been in Asia for the last 35 years in terms of manufacturing through to working with major brands and running as CEO and COO of several large trading companies. And we're kind of excited about obviously the change in the industry. And I think obviously last year, and everybody realized, obviously, within the industry itself, there's been a much needed, pressure for change. I think last year, in terms of what happened throughout the supply chain, was an obviously accelerant to that happening. So, yeah, I'm going to present basically just obviously an overview of what we are seeing, obviously through Infinity, in terms of obviously, how to kickstart the digital transformation in terms of what happens at a factory level, and more importantly, how to engage brands and from different levels, be it big retailers through to SMEs down to individual startups and small designer brands. So I shall market forces driving the need for change, right? So 5 basic principles that obviously that are being addressed right now, obviously through digitalization and the digital entities that are being created in the industries. And some of the market forces obviously right now are, start with the reduced barriers of digital entity. I think everyone's aware of that, the barriers are becoming lower and lower, and it's creating obviously a lot of blurred lines throughout the industry and a lot of opportunity. Number 2 is decentralization. I think on this particular point, businesses are, new entrants and definitely businesses are reaching further and disaggregating business offering as throughout invading into brand new spaces as well. So it is creating a lot of opportunity out there, for smaller companies through to big. So I think it decoupled, the value chain. So yeah, obviously, as these, as the industry now, obviously, there's a lot of focus on, increased speed, velocity, transparency, and access to disaggregate, value chains, throughout. The importance of data, as everybody mentions right now, data is obviously the new currency. I think as the growth of data is accelerating and is focusing issues around obviously ownership, privacy, security, transparency, and trust, and the technological eco advantage, which basically talks about new ecosystems accessible through digital channels, which obviously reduces a lot of cost that's been traditionally in the supply chain. So the golden circle. Why, how, and what? So why? So I mean, obviously, from the digital retailing, in terms of obviously the omni channels and what's available right now, we have to service obviously direct retail, brick and mortar, wholesale, e-commerce, social media, and obviously big resellers like Amazon, and now we're very much into different retail modes through influencers and social media in conjunction with that. I think obviously what's going to be interesting to see in the coming year is basically how this all affects the balance between e-commerce, wholesale, and retail. Customer expectations are definitely there's a massive shift in terms of obviously what the consumer is looking for. Everybody talks about push models and pull models, and I think as we talk more about pull models, there are expectations from customers in terms of moving away from this mass production into basically being able to enable brands to produce from a micro season, almost on month by month basis, on demand solutions, and throw into that the degree of personalization, which we're starting to see with a lot of brands. More so the pickup that really depends quite heavily on places like China, where personalization is becoming such a big thing there. Sales precision and sales approximation. I mean, having been with big retailers, I think it's safe to say that seasons are basically run between the normal season in terms of product development through to ship products can be anything between 8 to 12 months. And how these were traditionally planned out, but really based on obviously sales forecasts or sales results from last year, and open to buy dollars in terms of what was coming into this year. So in actual fact, using data from last year, basing assumptions on that and plans on that would effectively mean that by the time you land goods, but back into retail by e-commerce or bricks and mortars, you could be talking anything between 18 to 20 months in terms of obviously using that data to getting goods in the store. I think as we move into digital process and being able to look at real-time data, I think the the need for less is more is basically, and obviously working directly with on-demand solutions with retailers, and getting that data on a real-time basis, on a month-by-month basis, is key to the success in terms of obviously how you position your raw materials, and obviously affects everything from ratio information in terms of what used to cut traditionally, and which were all kind of based on assumptions. But obviously now there's a lot more information about styles which are selling, colors which are selling, and obviously the size ratios, which are definitely, even from different countries of origin standpoint, can be quite impactful. The one thing that we are seeing, obviously, is the abundance of technology out there in terms of obviously how they interact and service different brands. Our dealings with the brands that we have been dealing with, I mean, obviously, I would say the technology within the industry has gone from being we kind of moved away from obviously a very linear approach in terms of where it used to be, to being a lot more vertical, a lot more specialized in certain areas and key areas. And we've just highlighted on this particular slide the just a few of some of the solutions which are out there, from 3D into avatar creation, rendering, VR, AR configuration, body fits, into obviously end consumer in terms of distribution and retail itself. And to be honest with you, I think when it comes to brands and dealing with brands and engaging them and trying to figure out basically their existing digital footprint and where they want to be, there is an awful amount of confusion out there in terms of really what does everybody do with the type of technologies out there, and how does this make sense in terms of stringing this all together in terms of a real end solution for that particular customer. So getting back to what I was saying before, I think it's very, very important. As we discuss with brands, everybody's looking at 3D, in terms of obviously product creation, in terms of obviously taking a lot of the time and cost out of the front end and making decisions a lot easier and faster. And I think that becomes more relevant nowadays in terms of the inability for people to travel, et cetera, et cetera. But enabling digital transformation really takes quite a big deep dive into really understanding the existing digital maturity of the company, and obviously where it sees itself from that end state. And that obviously falls around from customers through to the strategy, through to existing technology, obviously how the operations, and I think most importantly is the existing organization and culture exists within the brands in terms of their acceptance and where they want to be culturally, and in terms of the digital uptake, which I think is purely down to a mindset issue, and can be quite a bit of a challenge depending on brands. I do think we see an awful lot when you look at big retail down to smaller SME brands, and even small designers who are up and coming in terms of getting their brands out there. The uptake in digital lift from, I would say, SMEs into smaller companies is definitely a lot easier. It's embraced and widely accepted. And I think when it comes to a lot of the big retail, therein lies the big struggle. Perhaps they are digitally not as savvy as I would say younger brands are in terms of accepting that. I think the biggest factor that we tend to find in this particular arena is that a lot of these big retail brands have traditionally built processes and systems around push models, and now basically as you work with them on their digital entity and where they want to be, you're now creating obviously that process and trying to move that from obviously a push to a pull model, and that can be very, very challenging in terms of obviously how that operates and moves along. So the digital transformation roadmap, basically the customer from it obviously starts with the customer. We must obviously, as I say, assess the digital footprint. It's very important to see kind of where they are, what's in place, and how they are using it, and if it's cohesive in terms of obviously one system throughout the company. You know, we've obviously had a lot of experience and people using, you know, different formats, which obviously poses its own challenges, and everybody has obviously their own preferences. But, you know, it's important that obviously, you know, you have to provide, you know, the experience with the customer reviews, their organization and you as a real digital partner in terms of walking them through their preferred channels, and obviously, you know, what makes sense to them, and having, you know, people like Infinity walking hand in hand with them through this process as it moves down the road. Obviously, as I mentioned before, digital maturity model is very, very important. It really focuses on how the businesses transforms and operates to increase, obviously, their competitive advantage through digital initiatives, and is embedded within the overall kind of business strategy of the organization. You know, one of the areas we do find, and we'll talk a little bit about this later on, is, you know, there is a very set process in terms of obviously how that's implemented, and a lot of people want to run before they can walk, and it's very important for brands and companies to understand that there is obviously, you know, key processes and strategy involved around this. Technology, obviously technology gives you a brand or you know, organization its point of differentiation, right? So, you know, they are, you know, the three key roadblocks in any business are obviously its relevance, its point of differentiation, and obviously how you sustain that as a business. And obviously, as that you know, underpins the success of the digital strategy by helping us create, you know, processes to store, secure, exchange data, and meet you know, all customers basically in terms of obviously eliminating costs and overhead as we go through the process. Operational standpoint, very important to obviously define a clear roadmap, define not only the digital roadmap, but obviously the stakeholders involved in any organization, which is you know, part of the challenge in terms of obviously getting green light processes to go through and implement strategies like this. As I say, there are a lot of challenges ahead with organizations, not just from an implementation standpoint, but obviously from a pure cultural okay. So the culture, very important in terms of obviously selling and implementing this from a digital maturity standpoint. Traditional supply chain, obviously, you know, the linear one is one that everybody's been used to, where you're talking, you know, your 8 to 12 months in terms of obviously product development through the store. The circular one that we aim for is basically circles around obviously a digital core, from production scheduling, connecting with the customer, smart factory, the cloud portal where all this is housed, digital development, and dynamic fulfillment through, you know, drop shipments, you know, direct to consumer. Really depends on obviously, you know, key retail strategies that customers, you know, attain to. Getting back to the push-pull model, I think obviously these are things that everybody talks about on a day-to-day basis. You know, obviously from a push model, you know, production's it's approximated. You know, people do this based on last year's results and what they have open from a dollar perspective, you know, all anticipated usage, large lots of production, you know, production inventories, high waste, and really management firefighting in terms of obviously how to get, you know, and sell garments through at full price as opposed to the traditional discounting that goes on from season to season. obviously from a pull model, small lots, active consumption, low inventories, and it's a very sustainable solution, overall in terms of really, making exactly what it is you can sell. So what? Action and implementation. So, three main key areas we have here is really, imagine, deliver, and run. The imagine obviously is defining, defining the strategy, igniting the innovation, and deriving the insights. Deliver is just obviously creating experiences and developing with brands and companies their core, their digital cores, and leading that change with them as we work through this as a process. And then running, building the platforms which are suitable for them, in terms of their business model, and the retail environment, and obviously delivering asset management, the data they need to be able to make real-time decisions on the state of the business in terms of obviously, how they deliver and optimize selling goods at full price. And then, as I mentioned before, sustaining that as a strategy and optimizing that as you go along in terms of the tweaks and adjustments you need to make from that particular implementation. Benefits: customer satisfaction, cost-effective, minimal entropy, sustainability, and it's simple and easy. When you look at this, I've taken a very simple model of a piece of apparel, it's retailing about $100. Traditionally, when it comes into LDP as manufacturers delivering to customers, whether it be FOB, LDP, or DDP, predominantly brands have their IMU, their initial markups of around 80%. And to be honest with you, within that 80%, they've already factored in 45% markdowns within that cost. So it's quite horrendous knowing that they've gone into this, knowing that they're never going to be, what percentage they actually will be selling at full price. So, yep, when it comes to on-demand manufacturing, there's no doubt about it. It's expensive. Yep, it's more expensive from a CM perspective, a BM perspective, and obviously from a logistics standpoint as well, because you're delivering smaller quantities in as opposed to being the traditional containers. But, obviously when you look at the biggest percentage of that mix in terms of profitability, you've got 45% markdowns, 25% selling and administration, which become then obviously a very small percentage, as historically they have been in the past. We are currently, within Infinity, we have obviously made it a point that we wanted to ensure that obviously the system and digital asset that we operate, facilitates everything from big retailers, SMEs, through to smaller brands, and basically what we classify as non-apparel, which who are people who are looking for an apparel solution for their business that they don't really understand too much about. So uniforms, hotel business would come into that, and we're currently working with, from, I would say, big retailers. PVH would be very instrumental in terms of obviously their APAC business. We're in discussion with people like Lacoste within China itself, YBRN, which is a pure customization retail environment, Caseify. We're doing business with Soraya, and obviously the Hotel Icon is our first, I would say, footprint into the uniform business, within that non-fashion business. Case study, YBRN, basically founded in 2014. It is a direct-to-consumer customized solution where basically, information is fed on a real-time basis through portals into a digital asset where obviously, block libraries, digital block libraries are maintained. It's all customized. It goes into our smart factory. We manufacture and ship basically goods out within 7 to 10 days. And it's becoming quite a large business now, growing trend right now between different genres in terms of obviously that where to work type of product. Quick overview of their their B2B to C model or C2M model, customer to manufacturer. So, you know, as I mentioned before, it's all done within an app. Customers get measured on site. They place the order through obviously their laptop portal. We obviously take that order confirmation integrated from a data standpoint into obviously the portal, intelligence cut and smart grading, order markers, single ply markers, obviously to facilitate that customization. So finishing pack, and basically all done within 7 to 10 days. So, you know, these can be done. You know, we operate on a single garment basis up to, you know, obviously depending what the needs of customers are, and that can range, that can vary quite considerably. And that is it for me. So I will pass you back to Mr. Chan. Thank you for your time, and obviously there'll be questions and a chance to
Yes,
later.
thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. Yes, actually, we will be. We're looking at our chat group and then to see if there's any people that who has any questions. Please feel free to put their questions into the chat group. And okay, well, actually, this is the first question. I have it for Tammy. Like, okay, so for example, I mean, how does a traditional factory even begin to digitize its operations? What do they need to be prepared to start this entire digital journey?
Right. I think the first thing first is to look within the factory and see what are the most inefficient processes that can be automated or replaced with technology to help improve that process to be faster and more efficient. So the key things, once you identify those inefficient processes, maybe something that are bottleneck or require a lot of human resources that are very repetitive and tedious, then you can adopt automation to help automate that process. I think for the supply chain, a lot of steps in the manufacturing itself, it require a lot of specialized knowledge and human capital. So this put a limit on productivity and adaptability, because the human working day to day can realistically never be as efficient as automation could. So with technology and particularly automation, you can break free of this, and you can even unlock, in one of the case studies that we have worked with, a manufacturer, a large lingerie manufacturer, it unlocks 20% more efficiencies compared to when it was fully managed by humans.
So, okay, okay, maybe then I will have another questions for Mark. I mean, maybe are there any particular challenge faced with when to a traditional factory when they shift towards digitizations, and what can be done to overcome these challenges? What is your thinking about that, Mark?
So yeah, I think it all boils down to understanding really the digital maturity of the existing factory, and obviously being able to work with them in terms of understanding really what it is from an end state standpoint. I mean, I think where we operate right now, you know, the one thing you cannot change is obviously the actual making, the sewing of the garment. From a digital standpoint, you can basically, you know, do just about everything right now in terms of transferring pattern down to smart cutting. And obviously that is far, but you know, the biggest thing in all this is really the mindset in terms of, you know, how people view this. You know, there's nothing to be hidden in terms of, obviously people do see this quite negatively sometimes in terms of how this is going to affect them, the personnel. I mean, at the end of the day, it is going to look at, you know, how do you reduce obviously time, money, and the overhead value that has been traditionally been there.
Very good answer. Okay, so Tammy, maybe again, I mean, I'm sure you must face a lot of challenges while working with a lot of the different customers as well as different factories. I mean, how can the industry reach its goals in ODM? And right now, we don't seem to have a lot of great solution for this. Any insight?
Before I answer that, I'd like to make one correction because my colleague beside me said that I said the wrong thing, that automation can, in the case study that we've done, can improve the efficiency by 20 times, not 20%. So that was my mistake. And for the how can the industry, like the challenges and this insight into on-demand manufacturing, or actually as we have worked with more clients for brands and manufacturers, we have realized that the term on-demand is a loaded word that creates a lot of misunderstanding. So maybe real-time fashion is also a good substitute for the terms that we like to use. And we've already seen, as I've presented in my presentation, that Shein has already achieved this possibility. So it is a reality today that is solvable. And the reason that they can do this is, as mentioned, using a lot of data, as well as the seamless brand and suppliers integrations. So the separation between the brand going off and doing the design and product development, and the suppliers doing the production and the inventory, that clear separation wouldn't work in the digital age, or wouldn't work if we want to achieve real-time production anymore. So it needs to be a seamless integration. That gaps need to be bridged using technology. And I would say that from what we've seen in the industry, because we've worked with a number of large brands as well, that more and more brands, as they've seen this Shein case study, which is quite prominent now on the internet, there are a few very good case studies written about how they've achieved this real-time manufacture. More and more large brands are now feeling, I suppose, threatened that they will lose their competitive edge. So more brands are looking into how to make that possible within their brands and their suppliers. So more large brands have already started catching up with this digital transformation and bringing in more automation. And suppliers that are, I suppose, more open-minded to open-minded to change or reinvent the wheel in terms of inviting automation and digitization into their supply chain, are being brought in by these brands to lead this journey. So yeah, I would say that it's already happening today, and we will be seeing more and more example in the upcoming years. And the suppliers, as mentioned, like, would you change with the industry or would you be left behind? So it's up to you whether you would change the mindset and be open to bring in more technology.
Mark, this is a questions we have here on the chat, and this is especially for you. And the question is, do you feel that brands are already convinced to turn into digital world? What do you see around you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is the question that everybody asks, and I think, you know, it takes time, and I'll give you a perfect example. Obviously, we're dealing right now with PVH. So, you know, prior to PVH, so we are dealing right now with the retail in China. So with Tommy Hilfiger, we have created an on-demand solution for PVH as we roll out this as Infinity. Prior to obviously us being involved, they were basically, you know, buying fabric from Pakistan, manufacturing in Sri Lanka, and that was traditionally done on the back of how retail, these retailers used to work before. So they would tag on to either the European order or an American order, and basically be that as more of almost like an afterthought in terms of what they would be selling within their APAC operations. I think the challenges that exist, obviously, in big companies like that, obviously, is the mindset that needs to accompany that, in terms of obviously understanding that as a process and a journey. But what that does enable the brands to do is that we are now basically, you manufacturing, we download sales information from the stores on a weekly basis, and we obviously put that into a system, and basically we ship direct to stores right now from the entity in China, direct to stores within the APAC business, and and within 7 to 10 days. But what is, so it's been an on-demand model that creates a massive opportunity for them in terms of how, financing the supply chain, obviously been able to sell inventory at full price. And what has now come out of this is because of this being, obviously as a process, they are now designing Asia for Asia. So they are putting into specifically garments, specifically the correct fit for that particular Asian customer. So it really is an enabler. And I think once people get over that initial hurdle, and I think the biggest challenge of that is really getting companies from a process standpoint that have been traditionally in that push model to now think about things differently and be in that pull model. It's a lot of work, but the digital transformation of that actually becomes, a lot easier in the long run.
Sounds good. Actually, very good. And okay, what about Tammy? Well, how do you see, could you share any case studies where a factory has successfully digitized its operations?
I can talk about a case study of one of the largest lingerie manufacturer that we've worked with. So previously they came to us because they have had to produce 6,000 unique samples a month. And that requires hundreds of skilled pattern makers and graders to make that happen. And they see that as a bottleneck because it's very labor intensive and it's all human resources that doesn't have a lot of automation involved. So when they approached us to help them make this grading and pattern making process more automated and more easily done, so that they can produce more samples per month, as well as requiring less skilled or less expert pattern makers, and are able to employ even junior or newly trained pattern makers that, with the help of technology, can do more or even larger output per month. So for them, they previously had a huge database of patterns that were either stored as paper pattern pieces or in CAD software that are not very well centralized, and it's spread out throughout different design groups throughout the company. So one thing that we help them digitize is we compile all of that knowledge, all of the existing pattern database that they have into one centralized database. And we, through our pattern automation technology, we look at how all those pattern pieces work and can be graded. And with automation can assist human to grade patterns as well as change shapes of those patterns very quickly. So all of these processes can be done digitally in one centralized web application at a much faster rate than if everything were done manually. So this is one case study that we have helped this manufacturer with, and as mentioned, it unlocks 20 times improvements in terms of efficiencies.
Oh, great. So I think time is almost up, and this is the last question. One of the things is that brands don't seem to know how to manage their supply chain for this immediate on-demand large-scale production thing, and they cannot manage their supply chain again with all the supply chain crisis as well. So how can brands and suppliers cooperate and work well together going forward? Yes, please. Maybe Mark, you start first, and then Tammy.
Yeah, I think this was also mentioned in the chat. I think when we started down the path with Infinity Innovation, we wanted to create obviously a back-end supply chain that really divided off between what brands did and from the front end to what obviously, having a solid digital supply back-end, to facilitate the needs of the brands. I think over the last 15 to 20 years, there's been a real push for brands to get more involved in manufacturing and spending a lot of time and effort in areas which I don't think they should be really involved in. I mean, I think, there's so many factories and manufacturers been around for 30, 40 years. They know exactly what they're doing. I think there's a point right now where brands need to concentrate and spend money on the front end in terms of how they understand how they need to work in terms of micro-season capability, engaging that customer content, how they facilitate that from artificial intelligence, basically put that together in terms of obviously sales and marketing and really what makes sense. I think the key part to this is really understanding that what the gap between manufacturing and obviously brands is that digital core, which people have to work, within. I think gone the days where people sit there and spend all this money on trying to produce, 25 pages of tech packs. I think there has to be common ground that basically brands engage factories. And as we start to scale Infinity, obviously what we're aiming towards doing is creating a plug and play model that facilitates brands to do that. And that could be in China, that could be in any other country, depending on where these retail needs might be. But it does empower the brand, obviously, to do that. But there's a very certain way of how that needs to work, and everybody works within that core digital content.
Great. And Tammy, what's your thoughts about it?
Yes, I agree with Mark in the sense that brands are typically the experts in selling products and the suppliers are experts in creating the products. But there's that gap that can be bridged with technology. And as we see with Shein example, where they use one centralized ERP as one source of truth to manage that data transfer, so that brands can make decisions extremely quickly with the knowledge that manufacturer would know that typically the brand wouldn't have. For example, what materials are available today or what can be produced extremely quickly to match that consumer demands. We're keeping up with trends in a matter of days. So the gap can be bridged with technologies like that, and more integrations as well. Or even platforms like Frontier Esmatech as well, where there's a huge database of materials that can be at the fingertips of both brands and suppliers to help make that decisions extremely quickly to produce something real time.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, thank you for both of you for your great presentations and all your questions and answers. And yes, there is an after event questionnaire, and then definitely we will be able to we will be replying to that as well. So thank you for the panelists, and thank you, Mark, and thank you, Tammy, and definitely thank you, Frontier, and all the organizer as well. So
Thank
have
you
a
for
lovely
having me.
evening.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, and thanks everybody.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. That was absolutely
you.
fascinating. I just want to say a quick thank you to all of the keynote speakers for sharing your valuable knowledge and opinions. And of course, thank you very much to our host, Paul. Don't forget that this is a 4-day event, so we hope we can see you tomorrow at the same time, 10 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. And for the attendees, if you could just spare a few seconds just to complete the post forum questionnaire, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.